Advisory Committee. As the chair and vice chair
WebEx Assistant is enabled to save audio highlights.
In my order as committee clerk, I will call the May 20, 2021 Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting to order. I'd like to acknowledge the newest citizen member of AAC, Maureen Timko. Maureen is a familiar face to many of you. She's a former Maureen. At this time, I would like to invite our Director of Culture and Inclusion, Juliet Jackson, to share some remarks.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I would like to introduce to you, it's my pleasure to introduce Gary Kent. Some of you have already been speaking to him because he's very well known here in the region of Peel. He joined us on May 10th as the Chief Financial Officer and Commissioner of Corporate Services. Gary comes to us from the city of Mississauga, where he has worked for the past 25 years. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Catherine Lockyer, who filled the position of Interim Commissioner of Corporate Services for the last 18 months. Her consistent support and leadership was absolutely outstanding during this very challenging time. So please join me in welcoming Gary to the region of Peel and thanking Catherine for her service in his absence. Back to you, Rusha.
Thank you, Juliet. Before we get into the agenda, I would like to provide a very short protocol for electronic meeting participation. As a result of the high counts of COVID-19 cases, committee members and I will conduct and participate in this meeting remotely. The recommended view to ensure a full view of the presentation slides is the stack or side-by-side view, which can be accessed through the layout button. This meeting is being live streamed. In order to ensure that this meeting remains accessible to the public, the meeting will be recessed for 15 minutes if the live stream is interrupted or fails. Staff will work to get the live stream up and running as soon as possible. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon located to the right of your name on the participant list. Speakers list will be determined based on members who have raised their hand using the hand icon. Recorded votes are not allowed at committee meetings. The committee chair or I will call for any objections. If you have an objection, please unmute your microphone and indicate your name and objection. If no objections are stated, the motion will be deemed to be approved. Members participating electronically that need to leave the meeting, please send an email to council@peelregion.ca. If you would like to request to speak, please raise your hand in the WebEx meeting or send an email to council@peelregion.ca. We shall now commence the meeting with roll call. Citizen Member Shamila. Citizen Member Shamila. Citizen Member Carol Ann.
Here.
Thank you. Citizen Member Raj.
Here.
Thank you. Citizen Member Paula. Citizen Member Paula.
Present.
Thank you. Citizen Member Mary.
Here.
Thank you. Councillor Fortini.
Here, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, thank you. Councillor Grove Center regrets. Citizen Member Naz.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. Regional Chair Yanika.
Here.
Thank you. Citizen Member Azar.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Mahoney.
President, I just through the chair, if I could request Commissioner Kent after roll call could just make a couple of quick remarks. I think it'd be nice to hear from him for the committee if that would be okay. Thank you.
Yep, we can definitely do that. Citizen Member Anu Center regrets. Councillor Sinclair. Councillor Sinclair. Citizen Member Maureen. Citizen Member Maureen. I see you in the meeting. I believe you're muted.
Me? I thought you said Mary before.
Yes, Mary, I have you down. I'm calling out to Citizen Member Maureen.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Here.
Thank you. Councillor Mahoney, did you want the remarks from Mr. Gary after roll call?
Yes, if that would be okay with the committee. I just think it'd be
Okay.
nice, as Gary is new to the region, give him an opportunity to say hello to everybody and make a couple
Okay,
of brief
so
remarks.
Okay, we're ready now. I'm done with roll call.
Great,
Okay,
thank you.
thanks so much. And through the chair, just a few comments from me. And I appreciate that some are very familiar to me, and then others don't know me at all. So thanks for the kind introduction from Julie, and thanks to Catherine as well for all the work she's done over the last 18 months, really, as in an acting role. You may not know, but corporate services and finance have been amalgamated into one department, and that started on my first day. So we're dealing with that. But you know, Juliet's brought me up to speed, and I wanted to let you know that although I've worked for Mississauga for the last 25 years, part of my portfolio the last 7 years has been facilities and property management, where accessibility resides in that municipality. So I haven't been a frequent visitor to the committee, but I certainly have dropped in a couple of times, and I'm very aware that, you know, through AODA and the work of committees, the progress that's really been made over decades now, I think, and really as an able-bodied person, how I benefit from that as well. It's not just about people with disabilities. So I really look forward, and I'm keenly interested in the work that you're going to do. And, you know, if you ever need anything, just reach out, and our staff will be happy to support you, as I'm sure they have been up to this point as well. So just wanted to say hello and put an accent to a voice or a face to a name. And thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. So the first order of business on today's agenda is the election of chair and vice chair. I would like to provide a very brief high-level overview of the process. Each nomination shall be moved by a member. Each mover may speak to the motion for nomination, should they wish, for not more than 2 minutes. After nominations have closed, each nominee may, prior to the vote being taken, speak to the motion for nomination for not more than 2 minutes. A nominee may withdraw his or her name at any time. Nominees shall be voted on in an alphabetical order of surname. Please be reminded that a member may only vote for one nominee per round of voting, and the nominee with the majority of votes is elected. At this time, we have 10 members present. Therefore, the majority of votes constitutes 5+1. Are there any nominations for chair of the Accessibility Advisory Committee?
I'd like to nominate Raj. I know she is the current chair, but, you know, we really haven't had much work going on this last year, so I do believe keeping our current chair and vice chair. That's just my personal opinion.
Thank you, Carol Ann. Raj, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I do. I do accept.
Thank you, Raj. Are there any other nominations for chair of the Accessibility Advisory Committee? Hearing none, we will now close the nominations. Are there any objections to close the nominations? Hearing no objections, the nominations are now closed. Raj, would you like to speak to the nomination?
Yes, I would would like to continue as a chair. You know, my interest in disability started over a long time ago when I was with the Ontario Human Rights Commission, and it was primarily because of the discrimination and lack of equality that the disabled community faced in Ontario. So further on, expanding on my experience, I also realized during the process that I also suffer from a hidden disability, which affected my life to a greater extent. But that did not discourage me. I continued on. It was my commitment to serve the disabled community as long as I could. I had to resign from a very senior position in the Ontario government due to my hidden disability. But since then, I have continued my work with the region as a volunteer. In the city of Mississauga, I serve on the Mississauga Library Board. To me, persons with disabilities must be treated with fairness, equality in all sectors of life. And I would like the AAC, with the AAC, I would like to see the work continually to be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Raj. I have a motion before me that states that Raj Chopra be elected as chair of the Accessibility Advisory Committee for the remainder of the council term or until a successor is appointed. Are there any objections? Hearing none, the motion carries. Are there any nominations for vice chair of the Accessibility Advisory Committee?
This is Naz. I'd like to nominate Mary to continue as vice chair.
Thank you, Naz. Would you like to speak to your motion for nomination?
Me?
Yes.
Oh wow, who better than Mary? Mary's just a lovely, lovely person. She knows and lives with access on a daily basis, and she'll just be great. And I look forward to her taking more responsibilities down the road when we start meeting. Right, Mary? One day soon.
Thank you, Naz. Thank you. Mary, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I nominate.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations for vice chair of the Accessibility Advisory Committee? Hearing none, we will now close the nominations. Are there any objections to close the nominations? Hearing no objections, the nominations are now closed. I have a motion before me that states that Mary Daniel be elected as vice chair of the Accessibility Advisory Committee for the remainder of the council term or until a successor is appointed. Are there any objections?
No.
Hearing none, the motion carries. I would like to turn the meeting over to our newly elected chair, Raj, who will preside for the remainder of the meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Risha. First of all, thank you all members for supporting me. I look forward to working with you as a strong team to continue to help the region comply with the provisions of the AODA, as well as implement the strategies set out in the multi-year of plan of the tier region until 2025. So having said that, I would also like to welcome Maureen. Maureen is an experienced person. She had a chance to serve on this committee a few years ago. So I welcome her. Also welcome Mr. Kent as a new commissioner and in charge of the corporate services. With that, I would proceed with conducting the meeting. So are there any declarations of conflicts of interest? None. Any members need to add any item to the agenda? So all in favor? None opposed? So would any member approve the agenda as is? Thanks, Carol. I can see your hand very clearly. Thank you. So going forward, we proceed with our first allegation, which is from Sylvia Harris and Mr. Ted Baruda to talk about the accessibility features of the PL housing project. So over to Sylvia and Mr. Ted Baruda. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Rusha is, okay, there we go. Hi, everybody. My name's Sylvia Harris. I'm a development manager with Indwell Community Homes, and Ted is with me today from our architecture firm, Envisage Architecture. And we are both here today to give you a presentation on the accessibility features at Indwell's first project in Mississauga on Lakeshore Avenue, which is Lakeshore Road East, which is at 425 Lakeshore. So you can go to the next slide. I am still getting used to presenting via Zoom. So, and also I just want to be sensitive to any accommodations for folks on this committee. So if you would like me to slow down or describe things more in depth, Ted as well, just feel free to jump in and let us know. The presentation is a lot of graphics and slides, so we will describe them as best as we are able. Next slide, thank you. So here's a zoomed out location map of where our project is. It's in the city of Mississauga, just outside the Port Credit, downtown Port Credit area, but it is in the Port Credit Business Improvement Association. And as a bit of background on Indwell and who we are and what we're doing on Lakeshore Road East, Indwell is an affordable housing provider. We provide supportive housing for individuals seeking health, wellness, and belonging. So we're based in Hamilton. We're 45 years old, but we have, in the last 15 years, have been on a organizational strategic mission to expand across Ontario. And we have actually been working on moving into Mississauga and the region of Peel for almost 8 years now. We first made a strategic direction to move into Mississauga in 2013 as part of our strategic plan as an organization. And it took us around 4 years to find a piece of property. And thankfully, we were able to find this site at 425 Lakeshore. You might be familiar with it. It's the old Firestone Bridgestone property. It's about half an acre, and we were able to scoop that up almost miraculously. We kind of have no business being on Lakeshore Road East based on who our neighbors are and the developments to come as an affordable housing provider. But we are very thankful to be there. This is not our only development project underway. Indwell has almost 700 units in our portfolio across Ontario, which includes Hamilton, Woodstock, Simcoe, Norfolk County. And we are also in London, Ontario as well. And we're also expanding right now into St. Thomas, Chatham, Kent, and Kitchener, Waterloo. So we are very busy, but we're very happy to be breaking into the GTA here at this location. Next slide, please. So actually, you can keep going a few slides. This is a little bit redundant. So Indwell is here at this site, and I think a few people mentioned walkability as a very, very valuable feature, and that's really critical for our tenants, as it is for every person, but for our tenants especially, because most of them don't drive vehicles. So access to public transit is key, access to local services that people need on a daily, weekly basis, food, grocery stores, pharmacies, health services, as well as parks and recreation and meaningful ways that they can be involved in their community. Port Credit is a great spot for that, although it recently lost its grocery store as well, sadly. That was a huge loss for the neighborhood. But this site is amazing for that. There is a bus stop literally right outside the front door. And our tenants are using other forms of transportation as well, aside from cars. So bikes is a very popular mode of transportation, and mobility scooters. So Ted will describe where we've highlighted those and provide infrastructure for those in our building as well. Next slide, please. You can keep going there. So just to highlight, did anybody have any questions? Okay. Just to briefly highlight the building itself. So the building is around 50,000 square feet, and I know that might not mean much to you, but we're doing 4 stories, so it's not tremendously high, and there's going to be 68 units, and they're a combination of 1 bedroom and what studios, and 33% of those are going to be barrier free. So this is actually the highest percentage of barrier free apartments we have in any of our buildings. And the 68 units. The 68 units and the 4 stories is very, it's intentional on our behalf, although we could have gone for an official plan amendment to go higher. We build our buildings around what we call knowable communities because we want our tenants to get to know and build relationships with each other because that leads to a sense of belonging and meaning for people and really making it their home. And that's sort of the secret sauce that we have as an affordable housing provider, in addition to the on-site supports that we provide in the building. So the Compass Food Bank is also going to be our commercial tenant on the ground floor, and that will be a fantastic partnership for the neighborhood, for the Compass to get a brand new space, and for our tenants as well. And accessibility isn't something that we tack on as something that we have to do for funding or even for the building code. A building code only requires 15%, but it is really built into our ethos as an organization and the way we approach design and to make as inclusive communities for everybody to belong. And that's not for people only with mobility or disability issue concerns, but also around aging in place is very important to us. So we do permanent affordable housing. So when people move into our buildings, there is the possibility that they would pass away with us, and we take that very seriously and have a lot of honor and respect for that. So we want there to be the possibility in all the units for people to be able to stay there for the long term. And just to highlight, these rents are deeply affordable. So our rents are benchmarked close to what folks get for ODSP. So they're around $550 a month. And they don't have to pay additional fees for the support services that we provide. We also partner with other support agencies in the region to dovetail what we are doing in terms of community building and relational supports. And we are able to do those low rents from the capital funding that we received. So we got $21.5 million from the region of Peel in 2018. And that's the first time that we've gotten the majority of our funding paid for from a service manager. So we are really thankful for the funding and the ability to do these low rents in an area like most of Ontario, but particularly in the GTA where rents are quite out of reach for folks who are deeply in need. You can go to the next slide. So I'll turn it over to Ted here, but I just wanted to highlight that, again, that the Compass Food Bank will be our main commercial tenant. And there are other amenity spaces on the ground floor, and the rest of the units are, the rest of the floors are residential. And that was partly because, well, mostly because of the environmental contamination that we had to work through on this site. It didn't allow for any residential units to be on the ground floor. But we are really happy to be able to design a space that will really facilitate great programming for the Compass Food Bank. I know that they are a really important community resource for that neighborhood. So I will turn it over to Ted.
Thanks, Sylvia. So everyone, welcome. This is the exterior design of the building that is being built. As you can see, the entrances are highlighted by some archways, some canopies to provide some other protection from the elements as you transition from the outside of the building side. You'll notice, see the presentation there, that there is sidewalk is integrated into the front of the building. So there's lots of easy access to all the entrances on.
Is it possible to turn up the sound? It's very difficult to hear, I think, for everybody. I don't know, Ted, if it's on your end, but it's we can't hear you.
Yeah, even this, I am having difficulty hearing.
Is that a little bit better? Everyone, can anyone hear me?
Still very faint.
Slowly.
I apologize. This is the only headset and microphone I have.
Okay, that's better.
Is it better?
This is better, yes.
I've basically got the microphone inside my mouth now, but we'll proceed like this. The exterior of the building is easily accessible via the sidewalks at the front of the building. Now, the sidewalk design meets the OADA standards, and it was coordinated quite heavily with the city of Mississauga. We went to great lengths and efforts to make sure that any person is able to access the building without undue difficulty. So I think that'll be pleasing to everyone's ears. The overall design of the building, as you can see, it consists of fiber cement panels on the bottom part of the building and aluminum composite panels on the upper 3 floors of the building. The facade is detailed with aluminum composite panels cut on an angle and arranged in a pattern to kind of evoke water. We are on Lakeshore Avenue, or Lakeshore Road rather, and we're near the water. So we thought a water motif design for this building would be appropriate. Not only that, the bright colors, the cheery look of the building should bring some joy to the neighborhood. It stands out. It's it can really be used as a signature address for people living here. Like Sylvia alluded to, when you live in an Indwell building, it's not just a place to stay. It's your home, and they want everyone to be proud of where they live. So Indwell has committed to building fun, well-designed, clean, high quality, and desirable buildings to live in. We want to be home. So that's the overall idea of this building. Next slide.
Also, to jump in there, Ted, this building will also be built to passive house standards. So it's one of the highest standards for energy efficiency on the globe. And so this building is very comfortable and also requires very little energy to run. And that's great for us and our operating costs. It's 2050 ready in terms of carbon emissions, and also very low utility costs for our tenants.
Mm-hmm. In other words, it's beautiful and environmentally friendly. Mm-hmm. Next slide, please. So this representation here is of the site plan. You'll notice Lakeshore Road East on the bottom of the graphic and Enola Avenue on the right. The building is an L shape, parking at the rear off of Enola Avenue. Next slide, please. And it has entrances, 2 entrances from the front, meaning Lakeshore Road East. One, indicated by the red arrow there, is the residential entrance, and the blue arrow is indicating the entrance to the community food bank, the Compass Food Bank entrance. There's an entrance at the back of the building in the crook, if you will, of the L shape for people to access the residential entrance from the parking lot as well, should they need to. Next slide, please. All of these entrances are accessible via barrier-free paths. As you can see on the graphic, the parking lot is barrier-free. There are ramps from the roadway to the sidewalks, and something that has changed on this site plan in the time from when we submitted this to the committee and now is that the city of Mississauga has helped us to eliminate a couple of ramps on the front of the building. So those ramps that you may see there, those rectangles in front of those entrances are now gone and replaced by just a gently sloping sidewalk that is accessible for everyone. Next slide, please. So the corridors and barrier-free circulation paths are highlighted by a blue shading within the building. And you'll notice that in the residential area, all the areas in front of rooms, doorways, elevators are accessible, period. They're accessible via wheelchair or any mobility scooter and things like that. So next slide, please. The purple shaded areas are barrier-free amenity spaces that are accessible via wheelchair and things like that. Next slide, please. And the blue shaded area is the Compass Food Bank. Again, that's barrier-free accessible. And in effect, what we're showing everyone here on this floor plan is that 95% of the ground floor of the building is accessible via wheelchair, via the entrances to the building. Next slide, please. So this slide here is showing the ground floor plan on the lower left corner of the building, adjacent to Lakeshore Road East. This area of the building includes offices for the Indwell staff, as well as a universal washroom, we'll get to that later, and some office spaces and a community laundry room on the ground floor. Next slide, please. Okay, so this slide is sliding up towards the north of the building, and on the ground floor, we include a common room for community functions, tenant functions, community engagement, things like that. That's a common space for the tenants and outside parties to use. Across the hall from that, we have one of the most important features of the building, we feel, and that is the bike and scooter storage room. Again, accessible with push buttons, with automatic door operators on the doors, nice wide 950 millimeter clear width at the doors, so you can get a scooter through or a wheelchair should you need to. And that scooter storage room has lots of space for mobility devices inside, so that storage and charging of your mobility scooter, for instance, can happen separate from your dwelling unit. This makes life a little more livable inside the dwelling units, which we'll get to later, but no longer do you have to bring your mobility scooter or your bicycle or your device with you upstairs if you don't want to. It's themselves are small, cozy, and they don't necessarily provide a ton of storage for something as bulky as a mobility scooter. So we've given you a safe, secure, lockable, clean, bright space to store your mobility devices. Next slide, please. On the ground floor, that same ground floor, there's a universal washroom, and that is AODA compliant, nice big turning circle for wheelchairs, and also has the provision for future OBC, Ontario Building Code requirement for an adult size change table when be required. Next slide, please. The second and third floor plans are residential, and the fourth, of course, are residential floors. Corridors are nice and wide. They're minimum, I believe, 1.5 meters wide. What we've tried to do is incorporate as much natural light into these corridors as possible. So we've provided windows into the corridors from the outside on the north and south faces of the building. That allows you to catch some light in the morning and some light, possibly a little day as it rotates around the building. Next slide, please. On the second and third floor plans, you'll notice by the beige-brown highlighting, there are two barrier-free studio units located very close to the elevators on the building. So a very short trip to get from the elevator, barrier-free studio unit. Next slide. The pink-purple highlighting shows the location of barrier-free one-bedroom units. And those are slightly different than the studio units. They have a bedroom that is separated from the living space by a wall. And there are, let me see here, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7 on the second and third floor that are barrier-free one-bedrooms. Next slide, please. The green highlighting is the rest of the units. They are non-barrier-free. They're just set up for people who don't necessarily need mobility devices, but are in need of a good, clean, high-quality place to live. Next slide, please. The fourth floor plan is very, very similar to the second and third. You'll notice the barrier-free studio units highlighted in beige-brown there near the elevators. The pink units are the barrier-free bedroom units, and the green highlighting, of course, is the rest of the non-barrier-free units. What you'll notice in the lower left-hand corner is a kind of a purple highlight, and that is a large community room. It's a common room with a kitchenette set up in there. This room has nice high ceilings, nice large windows. It's bright and airy, and really a nice place to meet your neighbors and things like that. It's meant to help foster a sense of community in the building. This is a place where people can go to hang out, especially for people who have mobility issues in the wintertime when it's cold outside and there's lots of snow and everything. This is an indoor gathering space where you're not separated from your neighbors all the time. So again, Indwell tries to foster a I believe what Sylvia called it was a community that knows each other. You know your neighbors. You're familiar with the people in the building. It makes people feel safe, included, and important. And it's great. Next slide, please. So this is just a blow up of that multi-purpose room. I think we've talked about enough of that. So next slide, please. So barrier-free one-bedroom plan. This is a type B unit. This is an example of what to expect in terms of a dwelling unit, your apartment in this building. When you come in the door, you'll have a kitchen that is open concept to the living dining area. 2:12 p.m. 3 notifications. And you'll have a washroom that is fully AOD compliant. You'll see later on in a couple of photos that I'm going to show that the washrooms are large, bright, with roll-in showers. Quite nice to be in. There's lots of natural light via the large windows, and there's easy storage access in the closets. Of course, in the barrier-free units, we feature a fully accessible kitchen, a fully accessible washroom, and lower curtain rods, not curtain rods rather, but closet rods for hanging clothes and things like that. So that's all been considered for barrier-free units. Next slide, please. And then there's the barrier-free studio plan. These are the smaller units that combine a bedroom, kitchen, living area into one fairly decent-sized room. It also has a washroom and a closet there. Think of it like almost like a little hotel room, kind of a setup. Everything kind of all in one space with a separate washroom and closet. Next slide, please. This is a larger, there are a few type D units, barrier-free bedrooms, one-bedroom units, and those are slightly larger, and they provide an added measure of space for people who may need a little bit more assistance. They may need a care worker to come into their apartment. So we've given the tenant primarily, but also the care workers, a little bit more room to move to make sure that everybody's well taken care of. The same features as the other barrier-free units are included in all of the units in terms of bright, spacious space to live in, big windows, things like that, open concept, all the rest of it. Next slide, please. Again, this is just another example of a unit. I won't spend too much time on this. In these types of units, you'll notice that the washroom is connected to the bedroom via a walkway, and also the bathroom has a door off of the kitchen space. So it provides a circular circulation path through the apartment. That means you're not stuck necessarily having to back up and turn around in certain spots. You can go around the circle if you like, and it makes things just a little bit easier for people who might need that. Next slide, please. So here are a couple of photos I'm going to describe, and that is the first photo on the left is a shot over the kitchen sink into the living area, and you'll notice that kitchen is accessible. This is an accessible unit. So the space underneath the counter is open for a wheelchair to be able to get tucked underneath the edge of the counter. The cabinets are a little bit lower than you would normally see in a non-barrier-free unit. This allows for a slightly easier reach to things in the upper cupboards. The kitchen is divided from the living room via a kind of like a little half wall, almost like a breakfast bar. It's narrow, but you can put a cup of coffee on there or your cell phone or things like that. So it allows people who are entertaining in these small apartments to, when you go to the kitchen, you don't have to leave your guests. So you're all in the same space. So it's very inclusive. The photo on the right again shows mainly the kitchen, and just highlights that fridges and stoves are apartment size, easy to use items. Kitchen cabinets and counters are high quality millwork. They're not cheap, slapped together, particle board stuff. This is proper millwork that you would see in an office building or in a home even. Indwell provides high quality living spaces. Next slide, please. This is the typical Indwell barrier-free washroom. As you can see, the showers are large, open, walk-in, zero threshold units. This allows, again, people who are slightly less mobile to access, all the comforts of home without any impediments in their way, without any barriers. Hence, the term we all know, barrier-free. Again, not kitchen, but bathroom millwork is of the same quality as in the kitchen, high quality, nice thick wood, sturdy, safe, and all designed to comply with AODA standards. Next slide, please. This is a picture of an elevator lobby in one of the Indwell buildings. As you can see, these spaces are meant to be open, not tight little crowded elevator lobbies. Nice and open, bright, airy. There's natural light flowing in through the corridors to these elevator spaces. So really a quite nice place to be. Next slide, please. And this is one of our buildings in Hamilton at 500 James Street North. This just kind of shows the kind of things you can expect. It's nice and open, nice, accessible entrances, walkable, rollable, and just clean, proper, nice buildings to live in.
And just to add to that part about the entranceway and the lobbies, it's really important that we create overlapping spaces where people can bump into each other and have just casual conversation, and that everybody can access the main entranceway. So that's why we always have the front door be an accessible door and have mailboxes near them. So it's sort of this third space where people are bumping into each other, saying hello, interacting. And then we typically have our staff office right next to that. So the door is open during office hours where our staff can say hello and touch base and chat. And it's really important for those kind of spaces to be scattered throughout our building, to make it as inclusive and connected as possible.
I believe.
I think that's the last slide.
That's the last slide.
I did want to mention that this building is halfway under construction and is scheduled to open in December. So we weren't able to include some of the current construction photos in the picture, but you might have seen it if you go by the site.
Raj, I think you're muted. Raj, can you hear us?
Yes. So I was saying, I was thanking Sylvia and Ted for their detailed presentation. It looks like they have tried to explain every aspect of the building in terms of its accessibility. So let's see if members have any questions.
We do have Carol Ann and Azar on the list. Naz, did you have anything?
Yes.
Okay, Naz as well. And Maureen.
Happy to answer any questions anyone has. Don't be shy.
Okay, we'll start with Carol Ann.
Hi, thank you. I want to commend you on a lot of accessibility in there, and especially to have it affordable. Not sure if everybody's familiar with the area. It's down Lakeview. There's been, since 2011, there's been the Lakeview Inspiration, the Lakeview East Corridor Study, and also the Lakeshore Connecting Communities. So this building is actually in a growing, happening neighborhood, which is also great to see that it's not something, or we'll shove them off to the back somewhere. So kudos. I do have 4 questions. I'll throw all 4 at you, and then you can answer them. So the first one is like contrast colors. In many places, it looks like it was dealt with fairly well. When you look at exterior, if you have silver, gray, white, to people with color blindness, depth perception issues, low vision, those can be sort of a dangerous thing. So if you can really take a look out for color contrast everywhere. And the outdoor lighting, I didn't notice it on the plans. Just wondering if that's been given great consideration. You will find in the Mississauga Facility Accessibility Design Standards that we do have a lot of context on that above OBC and AODA. The other thing was I didn't notice anything for relieving station for people with service animals. This is something we really have to look at and I did bring it up at the Lakeshore corridor study a couple of weeks ago. Also, who maintains landscaping to ensure we don't have protruding or something like a beautiful hanging basket with vines, a little wind blows, somebody who is blind or can detect what's on the ground. They don't know what hits them when a vine from a hanging plant swings in the wind. Sorry, that's a lot of questions, but I would like some answers, and if you consider those, thank you.
That's okay.
Yep.
They're all very good questions, actually, and I think we've covered all of these off in our design. Maybe I didn't highlight them for everyone, but if whoever's controlling the presentation can go back to near the start of it and show the site plan, I think that'll be the best slide to present on. I'm wondering if that's possible.
While they're doing that, I'll just speak to, that's a great point about relieving station for service animals. Carol Ann, I will note that down as something that could be provided for afterwards. And also just, it's good for us to think about in future projects as well. And then the landscaping piece, we do maintain all of our buildings. We have on-site maintenance team and 24/7 on-call support for maintenance and or any other items our tenants need. And then maintenance, the landscaping for this does not include trees. It's ground-oriented planting, but there is some trees along the side of the building, and I think that that's a really good point that I'll pass on to our team in terms of just being aware of how, we want our buildings to look well and well maintained, look clean and beautiful. I can't think of baskets that we would use, but I think that that's a good point to bring forward as something for us to consider going forward. But I'll let you to the contrasting and the colors.
So I can see the presentation is up on the screen now. This presentation has 32 slides. I think we probably want to go back to somewhere around slide number 9, I'm going to say. If that's possible. There we go. No, back. So go forward now, sorry. Forward. There we go. Okay, so there's the site and ground floor plan. That's exactly what I wanted to show. One of the things I didn't really highlight in our presentation, because I was focused mainly on the interior of the building, is that along the left side of the building, you'll see there is a space there with a couple of circles and some little stippled patterns there. That is a outdoor amenity space that's available to the tenants. Perfect place to take your dog. Or your cat, if you want to put them on a leash or whatever, your hedgehog or your snake or whatever you've got, you can take them outdoor there. So in terms of relief stations within the building, there are none. But on the outside of the building, there is a little side yard, backyard, if you will, for animals to run and play. It's fully fenced. It has gates on both edges. So animals have been thought of a little bit in this design. There is some plantings on the ground there, but nothing really big to trip over or anything like that. It's a pretty accessible space. In terms of lighting has been considered. That's something that's part of every Indwell building design. The exteriors are lit up nice and bright on the ground floor level, of course, during the evening so that people can access the building safely. Definitely been thought of. In terms of colors, yes, inside the building, I'm not sure what colors we're using in the corridors, but I know they're nice and bright and light. Doors to the units are painted generally, I think, a dark gray, so the doors stand out very much from the walls. So people with low visual acuity can find their units quite readily and quite safely. At the edges of changes in elevation, for instance, at the tops of ramps and things. Now, we don't have those here, but as you may know, the AODA standard calls for a bright contrasting color strip. That's been accommodated in the stairwells. Even if people don't have mobility issues, they may have acuity, lower acuity, and these kinds of things are meant to make life a little easier for everyone. In terms of color contrast on the exterior of the building, I don't know that that's a big issue really, but you'll notice the colors we've chosen are quite contrasting as well. So we have whites with a couple of blues and then a really dark blue. So it's quite dramatic. I don't think there's going to be any question of anyone not being able to find where they live, on the street, for instance. This building will stand out from others. I hope that answers your questions.
Well, what I was looking at, and I think it was in your last slide, the entranceway, you've got a lot of glass panels, which is great for letting light in. Somebody with depth perception or low vision, they may have a hard time even seeing where the door or the door frame is. When you have glass, gray, white, or silver around glass, that's not necessarily distinguishable. So the top floors have wonderful colors. The bottom seems to be going with the gray tones. And if you look at that with the sidewalk, the gray tone of the wall, the glass, and then the metal framing, to many people, that's all one big color. And it was the same thing down in the lobby. The mural is on the wall, but of course, an elevator is gray. So these become issues, then especially if the floor is gray or white, they do become issues for people.
What in your experience, Carol-Ann, or in people that you know, what are some features that are that can help mitigate that? Especially because we do like open windows because of the lighting that provides inside. So we would like to keep in that direction, and obviously we can't change it for this one, but for future buildings, what is helpful?
Lighting. Oh, sorry, Naz.
Carolyn, I was just going to respond to the question that was asked. What would we recommend? Can I just give a suggestion?
Oh, sure.
As a person who lives with blindness, I would suggest there always be some form of contrast. So whether it be a trim around the elevator door, a darker shade, the baseboard being slightly darker, or I don't know, I assume you may use rugs walking from the door to the elevator. I'm not sure if you do.
Yeah.
But if you do, use darker shade then. Use a dark olive green or brown, just something to give a contrast, almost like a walkway in a certain direction. Does that help?
Yeah, that is helpful.
And when you have a lot of glass, it's great to have decals. Now, people think, oh, we'll put these like silverish, whitish kinds of decals on. That doesn't help anybody. So having decals, whether it's the name, the logos, but doing that with some color, that would make a great difference also.
Okay, that we do decals on our doors, and typically they're white, but I can chat with the folks on this one to see if we can put them in our logo colors, which are bright green and blue. So there we go. That might work out.
Yeah, I've seen people say, oh, we put decals. Then when I go and do a little check again, it's almost opaque or it's white. That's not suffice.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? Yeah.
Hi, Mary, you wanted to ask a question?
I had some.
Raj, we do have Azar on the list, Naz, Maureen, and Mary.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Azar, are you able to unmute?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for a very detailed presentation. I have a question. Actually, some of the things have already been raised in the discussion. But before I ask my question, I have a general comment, nothing specific to this presentation, because as we are learning more and more about accessibility issues, and incidentally, today is Global Accessibility Awareness Day as well, although it is more about digital accessibility, and that's my field of interest. But even otherwise, for physical spaces and everything, what we are discovering is that accessibility is not just meeting the standards. A lot of things are being done. Okay, we have tick mark all of these checklists and we are accessible. But what we are discovering that it goes beyond that. And I think that applies to everything. Just before this meeting, I was attending a workshop with an international organization on digital and web accessibility. And the workshop, the trainer began the workshop by showing a picture of a building in the city of Montreal where they have built a ramp outside the building. And the city is very proud, showing those ramps at different locations. And the trainer was showing how inaccessible that ramp is, although it meets all the maybe building codes and standards, but for the users, how inaccessible the experience was. And that's happening in every area, even web accessibility. And I've had discussions with web developers, and they have a tendency to say, oh, we meet the WCAG standards, but the website is still not accessible. It boils down to the user experience in the end, and not just meeting some of the standards and checklists. So that was a general comment I wanted to make for journal accessibility awareness. Yeah. Coming to my question, it seems that the building has been made very accessible for physical mobility and other issues. I would like to hear more about vision and blind and low vision community. Like, are the elevators made accessible with some audio support, some announcements? Are there any braille marks, around where you have some of the signs in braille and things like that? So it seems there has been total focus on physical features. But are there any other things, any other technology being used to make the building more accessible for blind and low vision community?
Thank you for that question. You're right. The presentation did focus a lot on the physical spaces. We have moved in a direction of providing our signage with Braille, and I will make a note of that to ensure that we're doing that in this building as well. Not on every sign, but the key ones. In our elevators, we don't have any audio at this point, but I believe our elevators already been ordered. But in terms of lighting and things like that, that is more of a focus on our elevator systems. Ted, do you have anything else that would help with that question?
I don't have any information about the audio, visual, or audio.
I think it's really important. I think I'm just appreciating these questions because these are, I'm learning as you're asking the questions. So I'm taking a lot of notes here, and there's certain things that we can't change in this project, but good for future projects, and things like signage and things like that, that there's still an opportunity to add those as well. So
thank you so much
for that.
Taking them into
signage
consideration.
has not been finalized for the building. Certainly things like that are not hard to step up a little bit and include those kinds of things in the project?
We do have tenants that have visual impairments, and so that are fully blind with service dogs, animals. So I will check back in with our program staff to see if they've had any specific feedback around how we can make improvements for folks like them.
This is Nash. Shall I go ahead now?
Hi, Naz. We are running kind of short of time, so I would suggest that at this time, whatever comments have been made, the presenters take that into account, and we'll have to figure out a way in which we can pursue with some other comments, because we have to be mindful of the comment. So having said that, I would like to
Raj, can I just be very quick and leave it with them? I'll just give my comment and leave it with them.
Okay. Be brief then.
Yes, very brief. First of all, please do ensure you have voice in your elevator. In the 21st century, there's no reason why you cannot have it. It is a technology that can be added at any time. So please do that. Secondly, communal laundry. After especially a pandemic, I would have thought we wouldn't even go there anymore. I would. Apartments should have their own laundry facility. So I'll leave that with you. If you could respond to us through email to let us know. But certainly after pandemic, I don't think there should be communal laundry areas any longer. So if that can be looked into, I would appreciate it. I'll leave it there. Thanks, Roger.
Thank you for that comment.
Thanks, Naz. And having said that, in the interest of time, I'll have to move to item 6.1, which is the public health update. We'll have to wait for the other delegation a little later on, because Mr. Paul Sharma has to leave. So having said that, I ask Mr. Sharma to give us an update about the vaccination program and how we are handling the problem in our Peel of region. I know the cases have slowed down, so the floor is all yours, Mr. Sharma. Thank you.
No, and thank you very much, Chair Chopra. Very nice to meet you. I know we've had many meetings, and thank you for moving me up for my presentations. I really appreciate that. So as the chair mentioned, my presentation is going to be an update on the mass vaccination program, what we've done to make it accessible. We do have a lot of members of our community that may or may not be able to come to our clinic. And if they do come to our clinic, we need to ensure that they are treated with dignity and respect. But for those who are unable to attend, we need to find alternate ways for them to either have support coming to our clinic or find alternate ways where they don't have to come to our mass vaccination clinics. So if we can go to slide number 2. And so basically, the purpose of this presentation is to provide an update on the accessibility related to planning, services, and functions that have been rolled out in our clinic and overall for our mass vaccination program. If we can go to slide number 3. So the goal of our mass vaccination program is to ensure that everybody who wants to get vaccinated can get vaccinated, and we're doing this through a number of different mechanisms. So right now we have a current of 11 mass vaccination clinics, 7 that are operated by the Region of Peel, and 4 that are operated by our hospital partners, and then 2 other clinics that are coming online. One with in Northeast Brampton with the South Asian Task Force, and then also there's one that we're working with Bruce Power at the CAA Center. That's going to be a youth hub. As well, we've used targeted mobile clinics, and this is actually a key approach when we're looking at the needs for people who are most at risk and people also with disability. And planning focuses on using mobile pop-ups and Peel hotspots that relies heavily on community engagement efforts to inform the design outreach required for each clinic. Mobile clinics support improved access to vaccines by going directly to the community most impacted and offering a prime means of reaching individuals who may experience barriers through other clinic settings. And examples of mobile clinics that have been offered, we've actually gone into seniors' buildings, support seniors who have specific needs. We've used community ambassadors to go door to door to build confidence of the COVID-19 vaccine and supporting them in their booking process. Next, we've actually done homebound in-home vaccination. And this is actually ensuring the most vulnerable actually have safe access to vaccine. A lot of these individuals are unable to leave their homes. And we want to ensure that that this is not a barrier. So this actually accounts for a variety of physical, mental health challenges. And we have teams of mobile teams that we use our paramedics that actually go around into our most vulnerable population. And we have heard that there's a wait list because there is a tremendous demand for this. And we're doing our best to get around to all these residents who actually require this service. Another also opportunity that we're doing is we're looking at different partnerships, and transportation can be a barrier as well too for individuals who can or cannot get to clinics. Peel is a car-dependent society, and not everybody can actually afford a car or actually even drive a car because due to different reasons. And we've since the beginning of the mass vaccination program, we've actually had Trans Help, who has normally been for 65 and plus, but we provided it to any resident who has physical or any other type of barriers or disabilities that they can have door-to-door shuttle services to vaccination clinics. And then we've tried looking at other ways to increase the capacity of that. We have done the My Way shuttle directly from from Square One, the transit hub to Paramount, direct route. And another thing that we're trying right now is we've actually finalizing a partnership with Uber, and we're giving 3,000 one-way vouchers that are worth about $25 each. And we're working with our community equity and engagement advisory tables to inform the distribution of the vouchers to those who are most in need. And then the other thing is, from the beginning that we've actually done is, we haven't built this mass vaccination program by ourselves. We are public health experts along with the regional partners building this program, but also we've had a lot of community engagement, and we really want to ensure that we actually build this program for the community. So with our community and equity engagement advisory table, we meet with lead agencies, and this table actually supports the ongoing planning efforts. And it takes into a lot of different issues that account for access issues, equity across all areas of mass vaccination programs. If we can go to the next slide, please. And now I'm going to get into a little bit more of the details of what we're actually doing in our clinics. So within our mass vaccination clinics, the following are examples of accessibility-related services that are provided. First is a partnership with the Canadian Hearing Society working to provide virtual sign language for all clients who are deaf. An accompanying sound amplifying device is available for clients who are hard of hearing. Also, two appropriate signs are being obtained that that are recognizable for the deaf and hard of hearing clients. Next is we know Peel is a very diverse community, and we have translated our key documents into the 11 most common languages in Peel, such as the standard assessment questionnaire, because we know sometimes that could be a barrier for people who do not speak English as not their first language. Another thing that we've done is at Paramount, one of our larger clinics in Mississauga. It is a large facility, and people actually transverse throughout the building. For folks that actually have mobility issues, we've actually set up 2 tables at the very front, close in the back, out of the way, where clients who actually require assistance could actually be vaccinated there versus having to go through our normal process into the field house. And we've actually found a lot of residents have actually found that beneficial, and they can be in a safe environment. And we've done certain things that save max as well too, and we tried different things in our different clinics, so all the clinics are different. Finally, signage that is accessible level and have key signages that actually are plain language, easy to understand. There's accessible brand fonts. We use sentence case, all caps is more difficult to read. Large fonts we use as well too, and wayfinding signage exceeding contrast colors and color blindness standards. And we use with the use of yellow and black combinations and black and white, which are the highest rated combinations for contrast. If we can go to slide number, and you can see some examples there in the picture. If we can go to slide number 5, please. Okay, and what happens, what happens when you go into the clinic? So all of our clinical sites are accessible. Some examples include that we have elevators in the locations that we actually require to go floor to floor. We have creative solutions applied to arenas and soccer fields, such as additional ramps to installed to support mobility needs. We've also, you can see that there's quite a bit of space there. It's not just meant for COVID measures, public health measures, but also meant for accessibility. So we try not to cramp as many people in there. We try to make it accessible and where people have the ability to move around wherever possible to support wheelchair, and also people who are coming in with with support as well too. And then we have also looked at chairs that include that with sturdy 4-leg bases. So we're not having the flimsy chairs as well too. Next is we're looking at layouts to reduce overall travel distances. And this is actually taken into account for clients with mobility impairments and really looking at how we can actually make their journey much more pleasurable. The third thing is sit-stand tables are installed for core services functions. That's something that we learned at the very beginning, that we want to make sure that we are able to actually talk to the client at their level versus making them feel if the table's too high, too low. We don't want to actually cause any type of undue stress to them because we haven't taken into account any of their accessibility issues. And then also, too, we are very mindful of having additional accessible parking spaces set up within the proximity of the clinic entrance, especially at the large mass vaccination clinics where you have a lot of people coming in. And we saw this at the initial stages when we had the older demographics coming into our clinics, and we wanted to ensure our staff were actually parking as far away as possible and reserving those spaces for clients that require accessible parking, but also to ensuring with our security and line management company that the individuals that actually required those parking spaces were the ones that got it. Just my last slide here, if we go to slide number 6. Also, too, from the Region Appeal, a lot of our appointments are booked online on the web, but also, too, we do have our customer contact center. And we ensure that there's accessibility-related services that are provided there as well, too. So we do have translation services available via the phone. So we have a third-party translation service that is available to leverage for clients phoning into the customer contact center at Access PO. We have translation for written communications to the mass vaccination program. Next, we have relay service, and this is for clients with the hearing impairments or speech impairments. A relay service from Bell can be leveraged to provide support. In addition, on our website, we do have a web chat function for general mass vaccination question or COVID questions or related to client booking that can be used on the external website. And we do have a virtual assistant that is available as well, too. And something that, at our mass vaccination clinics and the Region Appeal, we are always striving to improve. If we need to purchase more wheelchairs, we actually buy them the same day. And that's something that we learned with the older demographics. We had 3, 4, and then we actually needed more. So that's, there's a strong commitment from the Region Appeal to ensure that any client that comes into our clinic has the dignity, but also to clients that are unable to come. We do provide alternate services, either by going into the community that's closer where they feel safe and comfortable, but as well, if they do require inbound home services as well too. So that is my last slide. If we can go to the very last slide, it's time for questions. If there are any questions for me.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma. It was great. I think you covered all accessibility perspectives. So, Rusha, would you manage the questions, Madam Clerk?
Madam Chair, I don't see anybody on the list. Azar, Naz, did you guys have any questions or comments?
This is Naz. I just want to say that's fabulous. I think the region is doing everything they can to accommodate individuals, and I've heard nothing but good. My only concern is the housebound individuals who really have severe illnesses, disabilities. But as you said, you are working towards that. So I just hope they can be vaccinated soon as well. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. And, there is a great demand for it, and we are leveraging our resources and moving resources around to ensure that we can get to them as quickly as possible. We've had a great demand for it.
Right.
I don't have any question.
Thank you, Azar. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Naz. If we can just have someone move receipt at 6.1. Naz, okay, thank you. And if we could please go back and move receipt for 5.1.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll go back to our second delegations. We are a little bit running short of time. So the second delegation is by Lisa Kelly, the program manager, and Louis DePalma, vice president from the enterprise programs, from representing the Ontario Chamber of Commerce, and they will be presenting the key aspects of the Discoverability Network. So over to you, Ms. Kelly and Ms. DePalma. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you for allowing us to come here and talk about our program today. My name is Lisa Kelly. I'm a programs manager with the Ontario Chamber of Commerce. I'm a white, middle-aged woman with white hair sitting in front of a blue, very vibrant blue couch and background. I'm joined by Louis DePalma. Louis, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm the Vice President of Programs at the Ontario Chamber of Commerce. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for having us here today.
So we're here today to talk to you about the Discoverability Network. And really the program is all about the benefits of being an inclusive employer. You obviously have a copy of our deck, and we do have links to our contact information in the deck. It is an accessible document, so you should be able to read it using assistive technology. Next slide, please. So about 5 years ago, the Chamber of Commerce, which represents 135 local chambers of commerce and boards of trade across the province, it was engaging with its members, and they informed us that there were concerns and gaps in skills shortages and labor market opportunities. So as the indispensable partner of business, Louis DePalma, who's on the call with me today, decided to create a program that connects businesses that see the value of hiring people with disabilities to themselves for a hiring initiative. And Discoverability was born. We know that there's about 75% of the small to medium-sized enterprises across the province that identified that their number one barrier to productivity and growth was finding talent. So program was created. It's grown since then. And really just want to tell you a little bit about that. We believe that people with disabilities are underrepresented in the labor market. That's backed up by Statistics Canada and the survey of disability that was done in 2017. Next slide, please. So we know that this is a very large demographic. The numbers that I have on the screen actually show that about 20% of Canadians have self-identified as having a disability. Now, that's probably low, given that these are people that have self-identified on the StatsCan surveys. The largest number would be pain, flexibility, and mobility, followed by mental health. That's about 6.2 million Canadians, and it's a fast-growing and diverse group, and it continues to increase every year. Next slide. It's kind of a number that's so large, it doesn't make any sense for business to ignore it, both in terms of employees, potential employees, and the labor pool, but also in terms of customers. We know that from our own studies, as well as things like the Bank of Montreal survey in 2014, that 77% of small businesses who've hired people with disabilities said that they met or exceeded expectations. So we know that once the connection happens, people with disabilities in general make great employees and have a net positive overall effect on the businesses, making them more inclusive. I know we've talked about accessibility in this, but we believe that inclusion is the next step beyond accessibility. So we want to make people be able to access the jobs, but also feel included, and have long-term career paths. I spend a lot of my time training the businesses on the value of hiring people with disabilities. I do have experiential knowledge myself of that. So we spend a lot of time not only connecting people via an online job matching platform, but also through training. We're also here to help with capacity issues. Louis, do you want to just step in and just talk about some of the challenges small to medium-sized enterprises have in terms of capacity and how we're addressing that?
Well, as everyone knows, a small business person really wears, the owner of that business wears 17, sometimes 20 hats, right? They're doing everything. They don't have HR departments. So when we designed this program, we really designed it with that small business person in mind. So we're trying to help the businesses access this talent pool, much needed and a rich talent pool, I may add. And what we've done with part of the capacity issues here, we've created a hiring roadmap, which will actually help the small business go through all the process of recruiting, right from determining the job that needs to be filled, the job ad, and how to write it, how to post that ad, how to make the interview accessible, questions that they should be asking from an accessible standpoint, really from A to Z. And then once the person is hired, there's a whole section in there on onboarding and how to onboard into their company, also how to create that barrier-free environment.
Next slide, please. Thank you, Louis. So what is the Discoverability Network? There's three primary components. The first is a job matching platform. It's fully accessible. We worked very hard working with the CNIB and with Magnet to make it accessible for individuals who use assistive technology. So it is, open to people with any type of disability to sign on and connect to businesses that are posting jobs. Currently, we have about 700 employers on the system, I believe, and we're just adding more and more users every day. I think we're sitting at around 3,000. The more employers and that I get on the system, the easier it is to convince people to use the system because they see the jobs up on the screen. So we're trying to both encourage employers and encourage candidates to use the system. Their information is protected. It's a non-searchable database, so nobody can Google my name and see if I have an account. But people self-identify on the system with having a disability, not what disability it is, and they're connected to companies with targeted outreach strategies. So jobs that are specifically for individuals with a disability. These range everything from entry level up to middle level management. We have companies like CBC looking for a director of inclusion and outreach on there. We have entry level at different manufacturing facilities in your region. We have hotels, we have medical companies, we have banks. So it's a wide range of employers and opportunities on the system. In order to support everybody that uses it, we've rolled out a pretty massive training program over the last year and a half. And so we provide free training to anybody who uses the system. We provide that training on disability, what I call confidence, inclusive recruiting strategies, disclosure and accommodations, on the AODA, on creating accessible documents. We have about 11 pieces of training that are unique for employers, 4 pieces for employment service providers, and we have about 10 trainings that are available to job seekers who have a disability. We have dedicated staff who will help people to improve their profiles if they're not getting job matches, and we've created networking events that connect employers directly to the job seekers. So these are employers on our network who we may host a networking event. It's all online right now, but connect. So for instance, recently, about 2 months ago, Fable Technology came on and they hired 10 candidates who all use assistive technology at a really great starting wage of $30 an hour. So those are the kinds of opportunities available. We think it's a pretty fantastic offering. Next slide. So it's really about connecting qualified talent who happen to have a disability to businesses, offering resources and supports at no charge to businesses, and providing, a marketing and outreach support. Louis, do you want to, next slide? Our ask.
So thank you very much, Lisa, for that. In terms of what we're hoping to do in Peel region, we have partnered with the Mississauga Board of Trade. I'd like to thank the Mississauga Board of Trade for working with us. And what we're trying to do is create hiring hubs in the community. And one of the asks is to help us create those hiring hubs, because as you know, sometimes when you have a brand new platform, there really is a chicken and egg kind of concept there that we need to get over. You know, the more jobs you have in the system, the more job seekers come to the system. The more job seekers you have in the system, the more jobs come to the system. So our ask of you is this, is we would ask that the Region Appeal Accessibility Advisory Committee is in support of the Discoverability Network program and recommends endorsement with a broader region appeal. And that accessibility staff investigate a potential partnership between the Region Appeal and the Ontario Chamber of Commerce regarding joining the Discoverability Network program, and then report back to the Region Appeal with recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
So that's our presentation. We're open to questions.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much, Louis and Lisa. Madam Clerk, could you manage the questions within the limited time?
Yes, Raj. So at this time, I don't see anybody on the speakers list. I'll just check with Azar and Naz. Did you guys have any questions or comments?
Yeah.
Yes, Naz?
Yes, this is Naz. You asked for that recommendation. Sorry, the speaker's name, the gentleman, I forgot his name.
Louis.
Louis. Yes, Louis. Louis, you mentioned, Madam Chair, is that something we can do, is make a recommendation to the Region Appeal to investigate what type of partnership the region could have with Discoverability to enhance our own employment program also within the region and the broader aspect of the region? So is that something as a committee we can make a recommendation? I do believe you came to the city of Mississauga and we made that recommendation there.
Yes, you did, Naz.
Yes,
and
we
thank
did.
you very much.
So thank God my memory is not failing me. That ability is still there. So Madam Chair, I would like to make the same recommendation to the Region Appeal that we recommend that the staff look into this partnership, or maybe Louis can read out that recommendation. We can refine it. Thank you.
Thanks, Naz. I think, Madam Clerk, we might need a motion on this matter, or recommendation would be sufficient.
Yes, so Madam Chair, we can definitely take that as direction, and if the committee wishes, I'll just like to ask if there are any objections. Hearing none, perfect. So we can definitely take that as direction.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Louis, again, and Lisa. It was a great presentation. So would any member support the receipt of this presentation, please? Hello. Hi, Mary, would you support that we receive this the report of Discoverability Network?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Moving along, next item on the agenda is annual accessibility status report for information, and we also have accessibility planning program update for information. I'm not sure whether Veronica will be giving an overview. Let's see.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can everyone hear me? Great.
Yes.
Thank you. So in the interest of time, yes, I will give a very brief overview of the annual accessibility status report. You do have the report before you. As everyone in the committee is aware, the AODA stipulates that the Region of Peel must prepare an annual accessibility status report. The report outlines the progress made in the previous year in implementing our what we've said we were going to move forward with in the region's multi-year plan, as well as any initiatives moving forward in the removal of barriers and improving accessibility. So the report before you is on the initiatives and accomplishments that we had for 2020. This report is a little bit different from previous reports. As we all know, 2020 was a year like no other. We had the COVID-19 pandemic to contend with. So most of the report, you'll notice, covers a lot of tasks that were undertaken in response to the pandemic. So if you the report has, it goes into greater details on some of these initiatives. There are other initiatives that weren't related to the pandemic, which included things like moving forward with our web compliance under the AODA and other accessibility initiatives. So the report will be going to council, and once council approves this report, it will be posted on the Region Appeal website. I do encourage everyone to read the report. There are some great things that we've undertaken last year, even though we were dealing with the pandemic, and they're all contained in the report. I will now entertain any questions.
Thanks, Veronica. Before questions begin, I must appreciate my appreciation. I read the 2 reports in detail, and I think the staff have done a tremendous job in authoring the reports and highlighting the issues in the current and in the pandemic. So thank you very much for putting together a great report. So we'll leave for question and answers now.
So, Madam Chair, I don't see anyone on the speakers list, but I see Naz has her hand up.
Yes, Veronica, yes, a fantastic report. I have a question about the formation of the report. Because I know Azar probably experiences this, when there's such detailed reports, have you thought of maybe having it with a table of contents so we can like go to a hyperlink and click on it and just go to that section, then come back? Because people like us have to read it from top to bottom and it becomes a lot of information and I can't choose and select. But if the report was, I don't know, formulated with table of contents, then I can choose the item I want to read and go back and forth. Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Yes, and thank you for that feedback, Naz. I believe, unfortunately, we're working with our, the report, as you'll find it online, will be with all those, you know, the table of contents, that sort of thing. It'll be more user-friendly. However, we're still working on the agenda compilation documents and trying to make them a little bit more accessible and user-friendly. So it's a work in progress, but I do take that into account, and thank you for that feedback.
Terrific. And when that's done, could Azar and I have a link to that so we can read it more easily?
For sure. I'll send it out to the committee once it's posted.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Veronica, if there are no other questions, could you
yes,
suppose that we accept the report?
Yes.
Thank you. Moving along, we are now in communications. We have 2 communication items. One is a brief by Deb Thompson, member Action Not Words. I had an opportunity to review the paper. I think it's a great paper. And I would request that we accept the receipt. So would any member support that we accept the report as presented?
I accept. Caroline.
Thank you. Thank you, Caroline. Next is a news release by the Ministry for Seniors and Accessibility, in which they are talking about appointing a new chair of the Accessibility Advisory Council, Chair Matthew Shaw, and they have given some information about the skills that Mr. Shaw brings to the table. So I would request a member that we request the receipt of this report.
I'll request the receipt, Caroline.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, sorry to interrupt. Just wanted to confirm that we went through 6.3 and were able to move receipt for Veronica's second item.
So, Madam Clerk, are we ready to move on to other business? So under other business, sorry
to interrupt. Veronica, were you able to provide an update for 6.3?
Yes, thank you, Rusha. I was covering 6.2, which is the accessibility status report. 6.3 is my report on the accessibility planning program. So you have the report there for you. There is some detail in it as what we have been undertaking as far as the tasks since our last meeting. You can find that information in the report. Just two things that I wanted to add that are not in the report. I wanted to just remind the committee of our upcoming National Accessibility Awareness event. The event will take place on June 2nd from 9 to 11 a.m. And I encourage, if you haven't done so, I encourage members to please sign up and register for the event through our Eventbrite link. If anyone doesn't have that link, I could send that to you by email. The other thing that I wanted to comment under that report is just to let committee members know that the GTHA Advisory Committee will be having a meeting on June the 18th, and I will be attending that meeting as well as the AAC chair and I believe vice chair, and we'll report back to you on that meeting at our next AAC meeting. That's my brief report on the planning program. Thank you.
Thanks, Veronica. Again, this report was very well written, and I think you have highlighted some of the key aspects very well. So thanks very much for that. So would a member accept the receipt, accept this report, Veronica, 6.3?
We have Paula.
Lamb. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. Is it Paula or is Carolyn?
It's okay if it's somebody else. If not, put my name, Caroline.
I was gonna.
Caroline, thank you.
You're welcome.
So we now move forward to other business, which is a brief report by myself on the proposed health standards and the public consultations. As you might remember that sometimes back I mentioned to you that I was appointed on a provincial advisory committee that was to develop standards in the area of health, but specifically for hospitals. So for a time being, this report was put on hold. This committee was put on hold because of the pandemic and some other obstacles. But again, in 2019, it was activated and committee met again and again and started the review and identifying the barriers in the hospital sectors for persons with disabilities right as they enter the hospitals. So it took some time to review the barriers, and then the most important part was to come up with the recommendations on the basis of which a health standard could be developed. So that again was a lot of brainstorming, a lot of input from diverse experience of members. And as I mentioned, the members were representing the disability organizations, persons with disabilities, and the subject experts and the equality experts from Human Rights Commission. So this committee provided a broader perspective of barriers in the accessibility area faced by persons with disabilities in the health sector, and specifically, we looked only at the hospitals. So right now, about 10 days ago, the Ontario government has released the initial recommendations, and they want public feedback about the recommendations so they could consider the full public input and transform the report into a proper health standards. So the way in which members can provide their input is to complete an online survey or submit a written submission or send a detailed email to the Ministry of Health. I would provide that link to Veronica and she can share that to you. So we have until August to review the report and the recommendations in detail and provide your feedback. I think the committee would look forward as much feedback as possible because we also covered a chapter on pandemic and the disability issues in the health sector. If such a situation could occur again, how would they be handled? So that chapter members spent a lot of time in designing the information in that. So again, please continue to distribute the link or share the link with as many members as you want and try to submit the feedback. You have until August to send the feedback to the address and the emails And just to assure you, there are some privacy concerns which will be duly taken care of. So if you have any questions, you can ask me, or you can always send to the ministry before you begin to submit your questions. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Madam Chair, I don't see anybody on their speakers list. I'd just like to ask if Azar or Naz have any comments.
Okay.
No, I'm good. Thank you, Raj, for that update. I'm looking forward to reading the report, the tentative report. Yes.
I don't have any questions.
Thank you, Naz. I think I would request all members to take some time to read the report and specifically the recommendations, because once we started exploring the issues in the hospitals, you will be amazed how many different types of barriers did come forward. And we first of all identified 7 themes, and I think you will find that interested, and you can pick up any theme or all the themes about which you can make recommendations. The themes begin first of all from the hospital's responsibility to accommodate persons with disabilities, then education and training, awareness and outreach, and specifically patient relations, and the responsibility of hospitals in ensuring patients with disabilities how to maintain their relationship, and finally how to handle the issues in a pandemic. So based on the themes, you can pick 1 or 2 or all the themes, but do try to take some time and provide your input. The committee will be meeting sometimes in September again to review all the feedback and prepare the final version, and then submit to the minister for their consideration. At that time, the minister's office will take the information, and based on the key components, they will go ahead and design the hospital standards, health standards specifically for hospitals.
Great.
So, Madam Clerk, any questions?
No, nobody's on the board. Can we please have someone move receipt for item 8.1?
So moved, Ian Sinclair.
Thank you.
Thank you. So finally, our next meeting, hope things go well with this pandemic and we begin a normal life in Ontario. So our next meeting would be on September 16th, 1:30 to 3:30, and hopefully it might be in the council chambers if things, as I said, get better. So please stay in touch, stay healthy, stay well, and we'll connect again in September. And have a good summer. Thank you.
Can we have someone move adjournment, please?
I will. Mary Day.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Okay.
So the meeting is adjourned.
Okay.
Thanks all.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good day.